Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we will be talking about, of course, the very important visit of the Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, and this is, of course, a very important visit for Pakistan and a very important relationship of Pakistan and China as well. Something that has been expressed time and again by both Pakistan and China, that this is something that has withstood the test of time. It's an all-weather strategic partnership, and of course, the deep historic and fraternal ties that both the countries have enjoyed over the past many years are also evident in terms of the kind of help and cooperation that has been extended towards Pakistan from China, including, of course, just recently in terms of the economic challenges the country was facing, and then also, of course, and in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic and many other instances where China has stepped up to support Pakistan in any difficult hour. And so it's extremely important for us to be able to put value and further invest in this relationship and re-enhance the way that the future holds for both the countries. And in this, the CPEC is, of course, a very important game-changing initiative that was taken many years ago, and the 10th year anniversary of CPEC and the kind of advancements that have been made under this project is extremely important, and we're happy to have the Chinese Vice Premier and the delegation be part of the 10-year celebrations under CPEC, and then obviously, of course, take it to the second phase of CPEC as well, as reiterated by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, speaking, of course, at the occasion in which the areas of interest between both the countries were stressed upon. We've also signed a number of MOUs and agreements, again expressing, of course, the future trajectory that Pakistan and China relations are going to take, particularly in terms of trade and investment relations and in areas such as agriculture and IT, both, of course, very important to the Prime Minister himself as well. And so we want to be able to see how exactly will this go ahead and move forward in terms of the kind of progress that this relationship is going to take and the economic ties that are going to be further enhanced. In a development earlier that took place today, we also know that President Arif Alvi also conferred Pakistan's second highest civilian award, which is Hilal-e-Pakistan, to the Vice Premier of China. And this is, of course, another a token of appreciation and a symbol of the kind of importance that the relationship holds for Pakistan. And of course, Mr. He Lifeng himself also is a very important character in the development of the CPEC project and taking forward the relationship between Pakistan and China. So we're also going to be focusing on how, under his leadership, will this trajectory also move forward. So we're going to be exploring this and more details, of course, in the show today. And for this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by former ambassador Mr. Masood Khalid. Before we begin the discussion, though, we're going to be taking a look at a small package, and then we'll speak to our guests.
Vice Premier of the Chinese State Council and Special Representative of President Xi Jinping, Mr. He Lifeng, is in Islamabad to commemorate the CPEC's 10th year anniversary. The Prime Minister welcomed Vice Premier He Lifeng to Pakistan and expressed gratitude on his promotion to Vice Premier of China in March of this year. The Pakistan-China all-weather strategic cooperative partnership signature warmth and cordiality pervaded the talk. The two sides discussed CPEC and bilateral economic and financial cooperation at the meeting, among other topics related to their bilateral ties. The two sides expressed their pleasure with the steady advancement of CPEC projects in Pakistan, acknowledged the significance of CPEC for Pakistan's socio-economic growth, and reaffirmed their firm commitment to continuing to cooperate in order to achieve CPEC's common goals. It was also agreed that the 10th year anniversary of CPEC festivities represented a new beginning for the two nation leaders' plan further to develop CPEC. The CPEC, which has attracted $25.4 billion in investments in Pakistan as of now, is frequently referred to a game changer for Pakistan's economic and geopolitical situation. On the success of this economic corridor, Pakistan is anticipated to gain significant advantages in the areas of energy, agriculture, infrastructure development, and local employment. With the prosperous completion of CPEC, Pakistan's status in both the regional and global arenas is projected to experience a remarkable improvement. Pakistan is also tackling its impending unemployment with the CPEC. As part of the CPEC strategy, China is assisting Pakistan in developing a highly trained labor force while also guiding Pakistan's technical development. After the meeting, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Vice Premier He oversaw the ceremony for signing of agreements, MOUs, and other documents covering areas including agriculture, industrial cooperation, transport connectivity, etc. Vice Premier in his speech conveyed President Xi Jinping's message on China's steadfast support for Pakistan's prosperity and development. Vice Premier He emphasized on the strong familial bonds between the people of the two countries as the reason why the relationship between Pakistan and China was special and had endured the test of time. He reaffirmed that China will continue to provide Pakistan with the current level of economic and financial support as an iron brother and strategic partner. Vice Premier welcomed the Prime Minister's plan to strengthen business and economic relations with Pakistan. He expressed China's desire to open up Chinese markets to more Pakistani goods. Finally, the Vice Premier urged for the creation of an innovative corridor to encourage inclusivity and openness.
Well, you heard, of course, the importance of this particular visit and what all transpired today. We, of course, will be beginning our discussion now. And Masood Saab, I'm going to start with you in terms of course, the importance and significance that this visit holds. We understand that there is a lot of value that Pakistan puts towards this relationship. But I want to understand particularly the visit of the Vice Premier, and that too at this time. And, of course, in celebration of the 10-year anniversary of CPEC, how important will this be in sort of starting a new chapter of the progress of trade and investment relations between Pakistan and China, and especially under the CPEC?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think this visit is important. First of all, let's talk about the gentleman himself. He has come here as the special envoy of President Xi Jinping. He's the Vice Premier who is in charge of international trade and international economic cooperation. And more importantly, he was head of the National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC, which is Chinese Ministry of Planning. And they are the ones who represent China from their side in CPEC, while our planning ministry is their counterpart. So he has been the chairman of NDRC for, I think, good 5 years. So he knows BRI, he knows ins and outs of CPEC, and he has been very helpful in the past in steering the CPEC process. Now, he has come here after the JCC meeting was held a few weeks ago in Beijing, which took certain decisions to advance the project. Now he's here, and more importantly, the message is, although the government is about to change in Pakistan, this is we are in a phase of political transition, but a very clear message has been given by China that irrespective of governments in Pakistan, these are state-to-state relations, and they will continue. And of course, when you talk about CPEC and its history, it was in 2013 that Premier Li Keqiang came here and they had a preliminary discussion, and the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif went to China when I was there in July 2013, and an initial agreement was signed, and we kick-started the process. And then subsequently, President Xi Jinping was here in 2015, which sort of, set the ball rolling. So I think it is important, the visit is important, and today deliberations have been good according to reports which I have seen. There's been a lot of goodwill, and which is proverbial, which is traditional between Pakistan and China, and it is no surprise. We are two countries which have stood by each other, and look at how China has helped us in recent crisis period when we were negotiating with IMF. So this is the kind of relationship which has actually no parallel in interstate relationships that way. So I think very good thing is that we have given him a red carpet reception. He looks very happy. I attended one of the events this evening, which went off very well. So by the time he goes back to China, he will have good memories of his visit, and important people in his delegation include the Vice Chairman of NDRC, who chaired JCC from the Chinese side a few weeks ago, and Vice Foreign Minister is there. So important people are in this delegation, which basically conveys Chinese signal and Chinese messaging that whatever may be the circumstances, China is always there to help Pakistan. China supports Pakistan's sovereignty. China supports CPEC. And the speeches and the pronouncements I have seen today, actually, Vice Premier has given a new roadmap of, he has talked about several corridors, green corridor and, innovation corridor. And I think our people should pick up the threads of, what he has presented today, and get going. We wasted quite a bit of time in recent past. There was a slowdown because there was a perception that the political commitment to CPEC was lacking. But I'm glad because from 2013 to 2018, I am a witness myself that how CPEC had progressed. And all these projects which you see now basically were completed because of the push, the commitment, and the hard work which was put in. There have been problems. It was a big project, but it got slowed down. But I'm happy that this government in the last 14, 15 months has really reactivated the process, revived the process. And CPEC has a bright future provided we don't become overcritical. And I want to say last thing, I don't know how much time do I have, but I want to say that because as people we have become overcritical and we are not objective and rational in our analysis.
Right, absolutely. I understand your point. Yes,
Ambassador,
Ambassador, we have another question for you.
Ambassador, sir, thank you very much for this very comprehensive answer. Let me ask you about something that you brought up just yet. You were talking about JCC meeting and the future of CPEC as well. I'm glad that you actually spoke about the highlighting of WAHEED corridor, innovation corridor. But I wanted to learn, in your view, what are the goalposts that we are looking at when it comes to the second phase of CPEC, and where do we go from here? Particularly, what are the low-hanging fruits that we might actually be looking towards, and what exactly is the shape of things to come?
Thank you, Mr. Farrukh. Actually, I wanted to say was that when we evaluate a project, we should look at it objectively. I mean, was there any such project which we have completed before 2013, before CPEC? And after CPEC, what has been the outcome? What have the results? Your power shortage is gone. You have about 8,000 megawatt in national grid. You have more than 1,500 kilometers of, good state-of-the-art roads. Your Gwadar port is, if not fully operational, it is semi-operational. Your third coal is giving you the, electricity, power generation, etc., etc. So my point is that despite challenges, despite hiccups, and despite a lack of, political commitment, which I think existed, we achieved this much. So now, going forward, we have already expanded the scope of CPEC to include new areas of cooperation. Agriculture is number one. Pakistan is an agriculture country, and agriculture is now number one. Then industrial cooperation through industrial parks and the special economic zones. Science and technology, education, IIT, socio-economic livelihood projects, tourism. All these are new areas of cooperation. Now, we have to prioritize. For example, in the transportation sector, I think our priority now is to commence this ML1, which in my view is a strategic project from defense point of view, from logistics point of view, from connectivity point of view. So I hope it gets going. We tried it very hard, but I think quite a bit of time was wasted so that this project could not start. But I think this is going to be a very important project to sort of upgrade our, decayed railway infrastructure. Then in agriculture, the government has established this Special Investment Facilitation Council, which I think is a good initiative. We are thinking of corporate farming and servicing for friendly countries in the Middle East, because they have a requirement of food security, food provisions, and Pakistan meet that requirement. So with the help of Chinese technology and Chinese expertise, I think we can develop our agriculture. Science and technology, we already have a consortium of universities, which was set up by HSC. We have 28,000 students who are there. Pakistan is the largest recipient of Chinese scholarships and training program. So the science and technology and education domain can also be expanded for, because what Pakistan needs right now, Pakistan needs three things. Pakistan needs investment, technology, and upgradation of skill set of our human resource. These three things can be brought into, CPEC's ambit, uh, utilizing the existing, clusters of cooperation. So, in my view, agriculture, industrial cooperation, we were not successful in operationalizing special economic zones. Chinese are interested in relocation of industries. Their industry has gone to Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Bangladesh, but we failed because we could not establish and operationalize our special economic zones. But now I'm told that the government is giving priority. So if you ask me, I will say that at least one or two SEZs should be made operational by the end of this year, so that the Chinese companies, because it's going to be B2B thing, the Chinese companies come here, they set up their manufacturing units, and we look at expanding our export base. Pakistani exports are stagnant. So we have to break this shackle. We have to get out of this vicious cycle. And
Right,
only
absolutely.
through investment, capital, and
Yes,
upgradation
Faisal.
of
Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, earlier you have mentioned a very good point about Middle Eastern countries, the Gulf countries. Gradually, they have turned India into their breadbasket, because obviously their food requirements, they are being fulfilled by India right now. Can we say that in coming future, of course, we are working on it, that we want to enhance our agricultural growth, especially with the help of China's high tech, which they introduced in their agriculture sector. So in future, we will be introducing agri-tech in Pakistan to enhance our crops. Can we say that we will be in a position to take our agri products to a level where we replace India in terms of India being the breadbasket of the Middle Eastern countries? And we know, as you will agree with this because you're an ambassador yourself, that in recent years India has created a sort of influence within the Gulf countries only because of one reason, that they have gradually turned themselves into a breadbasket of the Middle Eastern countries. Would you agree, sir, that in coming future we will normalize the sort of relations between India and the Gulf countries, the ones they used to be in the 90s, and Pakistan had the very special relation, though we still enjoy that, but India has gained a lot in recent past?
Well, I'll come to your question later on, but let me say one thing. When we started CPEC, there were four areas or four clusters of cooperation. Number one was power sector. Number two was transportation and communications infrastructure. Number three, Gwadar Port and its allied infrastructure. Number four was industrial cooperation and special economic zones. So you know the progress in each one of these clusters. Now that the CPEC's platter has been expanded to include new areas of cooperation in addition to the existing ones in the first phase, I think two things we need to do at our end. Number one, enhance our capacity for service delivery. That has been bad. That needs improvement, number one. Number two is don't waste time. We have to streamline our procedures, our processes. And I hope that this SIFC will make a quantum change. We have this problem of coordination between the center and the provinces sometime. Under the 18th Amendment, they have their own thinking. Well, that's all right. But a foreign investor, when he comes here, he doesn't want to go from pillar to post. He wants to talk to one entity which can guide him, and if investment has to be. So this is one. Now you said about India. I think that India is too big a market. I think we should find our own niche in this field. And I don't think it's difficult. I can tell you from a personal anecdote. In 2010 or 11, I was ambassador in Malaysia. And there was a meeting between three countries, Qatar, Malaysia, and Pakistan, at a high level. And Qatar even then was in, and we discussed this corporate farming and meeting the requirements of Qatar, you know, based on Malaysian input, because Malaysia is quite strong in halal foods, uh, taking Malaysia's input, Qatar's capital, and Pakistan's labor and land. That was in 2010-11. Now you can calculate yourself how much time we wasted, and India, you say, became a market. Now, I think my view is very clear. Leave India aside. They have made an ingress in Middle East because on the strength of their economy. So we have to strengthen our economy. We should look inwards. We should also try to become a granary for the Middle East countries. And they are interested. Even Central Asian republics would be interested if Pakistan can service them their basic food requirements. But this is an area which has great potential. Chinese technology can come. Chinese would be interested. There can be trilateral cooperative, modes, joint ventures, bilateral joint ventures, as well as trilateral modes. So I think it has great potential, and we should make our own place in the Middle East. We have traditional ties. We have religious ties with Middle East countries. We have contributed to their, security. Even now, we have, we are contributing through military cooperation and this and that. So we have a big diaspora also there. So I think we can. Our problem is that we do not look on our own problems. If there are certain gaps within our system, systemic gaps, we have to address them so that
Right,
foreign
absolutely.
countries get affected.
Right, absolutely. And that's important, especially in terms of course, what Pakistan needs to do. But Farrukh, I also want to understand before as well what the ambassador was saying, was talking about how the relationship transcends beyond the political dynamics of the country. And of course, the state-to-state relationship has remained intact. But I want to also understand, especially if we look back at the 10 years of CPEC in particular and the way that Pakistan-China relationship has evolved, has it not been impacted by any sort of political changes within the country, and that the kind of advancements that we would have hoped to achieve or are still hoping to achieve are going to be separate from whatever sort of political dynamics currently exist or will be there in the near future as well, especially in terms of the kind of change that we're going to be witnessing soon?
Right, absolutely, Sarah, and this is a very good question because we have seen, particularly regarding China's attitude in Pakistan, right? And it is a very legitimate question regarding how, this project is going to unfold in coming days, especially given that there is going to be a change in government, there is going to be a caretaker government, and then after that another elected government, and who knows who's going to be elected, right? This is how democracies work. But regarding the past experience, I think that as far as China's outreach to Pakistan is concerned, their approach has been very consistent. But given that CPEC actually crosses through Pakistan's territory, the question then is how our governments have been actually working on this. As Ambassador Saab actually earlier highlighted, that there was a phase during PTI's government that it was thought that it is slowing down. But now once again it has taken up, picked up momentum, and in coming days we are going to see that there is going to be substantial improvement. I'm also grateful today that the Vice Premier actually came to Pakistan. He's a close confidant of the Chinese president. That is not all. He's a PhD in economics, and he is also an expert on special economic zones. When he was working on the development side of the economy, at that time, this was his forte. So what we can learn from him, what we can actually work on is going to be great as well. I think that his insistence or his idea that there should be an innovation corridor is very important, Sana. On one side, of course, we live in a hardcore hardware world where everything from grain, agriculture to infrastructure actually matter a lot. But in IT, I think there is a lot of progress that we have seen, and then we have also seen the creation or start of some fault lines, international fault lines, where chip manufacturing is going to be humongous concern all over the world. On one side, we are since we are actually looking into Pakistan's mineral deposits, which include silicon and others, which are going to be instrumental in creation of chips. Perhaps one idea that I had was Pakistan can also work closely with our Chinese friends, and we can actually start some initial work on creating chips in this country as well. The second innovation or second very important thing where China is really leading by leaps and bounds is AI, artificial intelligence. They have progressed immensely. And the third one, Sana, and this is because the world is no longer two-dimensional map, now space also matters. So which country I think at this moment is the foremost in space exploration and its space program? It is China. So we can actually work on these matters as well. Of course, we have to then come back to the essence of CPEC as well, because at that time the idea was that China will be able to export its technology to Pakistan, and Pakistan and China will work in tandem so that both economies can contribute to each other. And it was heartening in that context also to hear the Vice Premier talking about China interested in importing more items from Pakistan. I would love to hear from Ambassador Saab when we later go back to him, which are the products that can be actually exported to China, because he has served there for quite some time. But at this moment, Sana, it is heartening that we will be able to export further, and China is opening up, first of all, to Pakistan's market. So that is going to be humongous as well.
Right, absolutely. And speaking, of course, about the export of products as well, Faisal, there is, of course, the very important SIFC that's there in terms of course, bringing in more industry and business in the country and getting, of course, more FDI. But I also want to understand, especially through this visit, there is a lot of emphasis on agricultural products and then, of course, IT-based products. And a lot of that also spoke about how there is going to be a learning process also involved in terms of developing technology in a certain way or to a certain level that can then, of course, be acceptable in terms of the export quality. So I want to understand that will this this particular way forward, especially in these sectors, is going to enhance the way that we can also then remodel that in terms of our exports towards other countries as well, and to improve our processes, which then, of course, doesn't mean that this is something only restricted to one relationship, but then transcends and can be applied to others.
Sana, this is quite fascinating to see the bilateral cooperation of Pakistan and China. Of course, they are iron brothers and all. But if we, look at the recent times, of course, SEZs. I have been going through lots of, stuff related to SEZs, that what are the things we will achieve from within the SEZs. Of course, Pakistan not only would get the education on making the products that are acceptable in Western markets, Eastern markets, and all of the areas in all of the exports, so that we can improve our exports. Not only that, but if we look at 4 particular visits since last year. The first one was, obviously I'll highlight, of Prime Minister's visit of November 2022. When he went to Beijing to obviously congratulate President Xi. And then the second very important visit was the April, which was made by Chief of the Army Staff. Chief of the Army Staff went to China on his visit. And then right after that, there was another visit That was of Chinese foreign minister. He actually came to Pakistan in May, and there were three foreign ministers who gathered in Islamabad for a very important cause, and that was related to peace in Afghanistan. So I wanted to highlight here that China is also focusing on Pakistan's western border for the peace purposes, because China is concerned about the peace within Pakistan, and China very well knows that the threats to Pakistan, they originate from within Afghanistan, and China is cautious about it. What China wants is, China wants to neutralize all of the threats which originate from within Afghanistan, and what China wants Pakistan to have is a better connectivity with the Central Asian republics through Afghanistan, because once it happens and Pakistan achieves that connectivity with the Central Asian republics, Sana, in that way we will have another horizon in terms of exporting our goods. Don't forget that all of the Central Asian republics, they somehow relate themselves in some aspects of the cultural relation with Pakistan, which can be further enhanced with the better connectivity. And to me, I think in all of these sectors, agri-tech, AI, IT sectors, emerging technologies, if Pakistan is rightly guided by China, as Farrukh earlier rightly highlighted, that China excels in these fields, and if Pakistan is guided properly, then Pakistan would be in excellent position to actually export our IT related emerging technologies and all of these products to Central Asian republics as well. So it would be a new horizon for Pakistan, and to me personally, I believe that this visit is a connecting visit to previous three visits, especially previous two, in which of course we are focusing on peace within Afghanistan and neutralizing all of the threats for Pakistan emerging from Afghanistan.
Right, absolutely. And Ambassador Saab, I want to understand further, especially when there was talk about the SEZs and in terms of how we were unfortunately not able to utilize them and benefit from them as much as we should have. But I also then want to understand as we move forward in our relationship with China and how the different areas and sectors are outlined and what sort of measures need to be taken for Chinese industry and investment to come in. Are we also able to express exactly what it is that we want from China, what we need, and how exactly we want this relationship to go forward as well? Are we also sort of defining the contours or calling some of the shots in terms of what Pakistan also aspires from this relationship, or is it more just China guiding us forward in terms of what is possible and what can be the future?
No, I'll give you an example. When we initiated CPEC, the government of Pakistan approached the Chinese side to help us out with the chronic power shortage. So the Chinese did not suggest to us to start the power cluster. So this is the kind of relationship we have. We said that we have a serious problem of energy shortfall, and can you please help? And Chinese came forward and said, okay, we'll help you. That is how the power sector was added to CPEC. Now, Mr. Farrukh had also asked about the trade potential. By the way, Pakistan's exports to China have shown an increase in recent months and recently, so which is a good sign, although trade deficit, trade balance is heavily in favor of China. But our problem is that we don't have variation to our products, and we have a very limited export base. What China is interested what we can do in near term is to export things like meat. There is a great demand for meat, and I believe this export will start, but they have very strict phytosanitary requirements which Pakistan has to meet. Number two is, so meat is a big big item if we can sort of penetrate into Chinese market. Secondly, agriculture products like chili, like fruits, like cherries, I started. The work was going on for last 5, 6 years. Finally, we succeeded because Chinese are very strict on, as I said, on this phytosanitary requirements. Now, special economic zones, Chinese would be willing to come here. They were, when I was there, I saw that they were very keen to relocate their industry because China's cost of production is increasing, a lot. So they are going to different countries in their own region nearby. So Pakistan is a destination, and Pakistan is viewed as an important country in the region, strategically important for China, strategically important within the South Asian equation in the context of connectivity in Central Asia. And look at the interests of Central Asian countries who are interested in uh, using our ports of Gwadar and Karachi for their overseas trade because they are landlocked. So I think these are the areas which are opening up, I would say, new opportunities for Pakistan. But the caveat is that number one, we will have to ensure security. Yes, we have taken a lot of measures to provide security to Chinese, but unfortunate incident like the one, which happened in Bajor yesterday, it raises a lot of concern internationally, including in China, because Chinese are here, they're working on projects, their personnel are here. So the security is of paramount importance for them, of course, for us, and it is our duty and obligation to provide security. So security is number one, which is important for a conducive and enabling environment for foreign investment. And number two is, as I said earlier, that we have to really look at our systems of, giving licenses, approvals, and there are at least more than 20 tiers through which a foreign businessman has to pass, to get clearances, NOCs, connections, this and that. I think we have to overcome this snag in our system. And I hope that this new facilitation council will closely look into these problems, which are a deterrence for foreign investors. Chinese investment would have been, I think would have come in a much bigger way if we had addressed these problems in the past. But it's about time. I mean, we can still do it. And the good thing is that the focus this government has, because this is a government during whose time CPEC started. So their experience, they know what CPEC entails and what the requirements are. So that's why CPEC was revived. It was reactivated.
Right,
So I hope when
Ambassador
we
Saab.
have
Right, there's also, of course, the very important relationship and the balance of relationship that Pakistan has had to play, of course, with its relationship with China and the US as well. And in recent times, we've also seen the US has also given us a lot of support in terms of the IMF bailout package, and of course, has also made statements in providing more economic support to Pakistan. And I understand that trade and investment with all countries is important and is valuable in the world that we live in. But whether or not there is a limit to which where when we express our solidarity with China, our friendship with China, and we increase our trade and investment with China, will there be a point which is going to be very precarious for Pakistan to be able to balance its relationship with the US?
Ambassador Saab.
Ambassador Saab, can you hear me? Unfortunately, I think we must have lost him, but Farrukh, why don't you take that question? Oh, he's back. Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear
So grateful he is with us.
No, what I'm saying is that it's not a zero-sum game. Pakistan has traditionally maintained good relations with China as well as the United States. And I think that trajectory can be followed very effectively and successfully. I don't foresee any problem. I think our diplomacy is capable enough to keep what you call a balance. But keep in mind that both relationships have their own history and trajectory. And I mean, there is a relationship which is defined by the substance it has. So, and China never says to us, China never tells us not to have good relations with a country A or B or whether it's United States. So and so because United States has been a good partner, it has helped us in the past and through its extremely significant development assistance, military assistance. So we don't have an issue on a kind of relationship, but that does not mean that if we have relationship with China that is against United States, or if we have relationship with United States that's against China, both the trajectories can be followed. And I don't think, and this is a given this competition or contest between United States and China, which is affecting all of us, but most of the countries are following this policy of keeping good relations with both countries. So Pakistan has a very rich history of relationship with the United States as well as with China. We have strategic cooperation with China, and at the end of the day, countries look at their national interest. What serves our national interest, that is important.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us. Faisal, you have a question?
Yeah,
Very
just
quickly.
one last
Yes.
question from the ambassador. Ambassador, if you can allow me, currently, obviously, we know that the biggest exports Pakistan sends is to America. Can we say that in coming future, as with China, our exports are going to enhance in coming future? Can we say that a day would come that our neighbor China would be the biggest recipient of our exports?
Well, ideally, yes. But as I said, that in recent years, in recent months, our exports have increased. They have crossed, I think, a $2 billion mark. But number two is you have to increase your export base. What are you exporting to worldwide? Textiles, some leather, rice. We have to do. We have to expand our export base. We have to have more commodities. China is a very quality conscious society now. When I was there, I pushed for this export of cherries from Pakistan. When I saw that the cherries were being imported from Chile, where is Chile and where is China? But good quality cherries were coming from Chile and very expensive. So I said, okay, you are next door to us in Gilgit-Baltistan. Please try our cherry. They are also very good. Finally, I'm glad that the export is starting. But my point is that you have to increase your export base. And third point in this regard is that if you look at the trade figures of China is trading with China is the largest trading partner of more than, I think, 140 countries or 150 countries of the world. And most of the countries have a trade deficit with China because China is the factory of the world. China is producing, practically everything and exporting. So most of the countries face a trade deficit with China as Pakistan does. But I hope that if Pakistan expands its export base, we have more value addition of our commodities, textiles, surgical instruments, marble. I mean, we send raw marble, marble slabs to China. If we have technology, even Chinese technology, if we can send a finished product, which will fetch you more revenue. So these technology is critical. Technology is critical. So we have to think of expanding our exportable commodities.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us and being part of the discussion and sharing your views. For very quickly, we have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I thought that whatever the last question was, it was going to come out of my quota of talking. But I wanted to he's smart, Faisal here. He knows that my comment was going to be about what he said earlier. I think that one ambassador, an international ambassador, ages ago, I met somebody who said that Pakistan has to be wary of two things, right? Smart mouth and the poet's flight of fancy, because that is not how the world works, right? The humble summation is all this talk about Central Asia and all that. We can go on talking about tying a rope around the globe, but at this moment, I think it is important to learn from our Chinese friends who are very practical people, right? And the first thing that they do is think big, dream big, but keep it simple. Right now, instead of thinking about all those other unexplored markets, first thing that we have to do is ensure that, as Ambassador Sahab was saying, we add value to whatever products we are making.
Right.
And when we export them to China and other countries, our quality control is ensured.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for being part of the show. As always, that's all we have from the debate, and we'll continue, of course, tomorrow as He Lifeng continues his visit to Pakistan tomorrow as well. That's all we have from the show. See you tomorrow.